All right. So today we're connecting with Ben Myers, camp director at Arrowhead Bible Camp in Brackney, Pennsylvania. Thanks for taking some time to connect and share.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So we'll dive right in real quick, because if I wasn't connected and hadn't met you a bunch of years ago and had the crossover, I might not know, what is Arrowhead Bible Camp? What do you do? Where are you at? Tell everybody just a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yep. So we're a little Bible camp up in Northeast Pennsylvania. And what started as, I would say, a small amount of programming spread across the year has just exploded. And when I first got here, I was talking to one of the guys when I noticed that we were going to be full in a session leading into the next summer. And I said, hey, what have you been doing? He goes, I'm just running the program. He goes, what have you been doing? I was like, I don't know, just doing maintenance and running staff. And I was like, I think maybe God's growing this thing. And so we thankfully were paying attention enough to know that God was doing great things. And we just had to move at the speed of obedience. And so the camp has been around for, oh goodness, this is year 78. And
Wow.
specifically one of our big programs that has become the heartbeat of who we are is our Shepherd's Camp program for teens and adults who have developmental disabilities. That has been a thread at the camp since the early 60s. And so that makes us we're heading into summer number 62, which is exciting. But that has really become our niche, our baby, the thing that we're super passionate about, that has become a catalyst for a lot of the other things that we're doing in ministry here at the camp. So
Awesome.
we're just up in Northeast PA, sitting on 11 acres with a pretty pristine lake and an old, well, I guess still some old parts of camp that still have that rustic feel to it, although things are really shiny, a lot of new stuff and additions along the way.
Awesome. You said Shepherd's Camp is kind of that thread, or has become kind of a primary. Talk a little bit about the other things that happen, because you have the James Project, you have the GAP program, you have, the LID program, and other things, maybe things I'm not even aware of at this point. But talk, because I think it's unique. Arrowhead is unique in that everything is mutually supporting, but also pointed. And so, yeah, talk a little bit about how that works, what else is happening, how that works, how they weave together.
Yeah. Well, to me, it just makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't everything mesh together and kind of matrix into giving yourself a way forward? So I think maybe that's not normal that people think that way. I was told once before that someone told me I tend to think about the end game and what I envision happening, knowing full well that is on mission and positive in all areas of ministry. And then I work myself backwards to, okay, what do I do today? I just thought that was normal. Maybe I just walk around daydreaming more than most. So we started adding things into the ministry or making adjustments as we went, which just made perfect sense for gaining traction, responding to the fact that God was growing our special needs ministry. One of those was taking typically the high schoolers that would serve with us on the support side of things in the kitchen, pulling them out of that role because they were all going to become counselors as they got older. For us, because we serve adults who are disabled, we have to wait till someone's 18 or older. But we were able to create a counselor training program. Obviously, nothing new for camp. But when we did that created a hole on the support side of things. And so we started filling that hole with missions teams that come and serve with us on a week-long basis or a weekend basis, depending on the time of the year. This year, we will see just over 325 of those missions team volunteers come through camp. So,
Wow.
so it's pretty impactful, yeah. And the great thing is they show up a new group every week or every weekend with big smiles, hearts ready to serve. They come with extra things to say thank you and celebrate with the staff or for the campers that just add exponentially to the impact of the ministry. So our missions opportunity is one of the big ones, what we call the James Project, which if you're looking at scripture is that idea of both being and doing for God.
Hmm.
And then along the way, this was another surprising one. We had staff or alumni that would check back in with us and say, "Hey, I just got a job." I'm like, "Well, good for you. That is the next step. What are you doing?" And they're like, "Well, it's with a group home serving many of the same types of adults that we serve at camp." And the crazy thing happened in the interview. I knew all the answers, which they didn't think I would.
Hmm.
Or they were asking me about experience, and the interviewer would say, "Hey, we'll probably just skip this next section, but have you done any of the following?" And they're like, "Well, yep, yep, yep." And when quizzed about it, they're like, "How did you know the answers to this? Where did you gain this experience?" Like, "Oh, it's just what we do at camp." Right. Or I was hearing about staff that their applications were going to the top of the pile because it had our name on it. And
Hmm.
that was just floored. I mean, I didn't think we were doing anything extra special or big or super impactful. We're just running camp. I mean, I was having a blast. I was in my early 20s. I used to tell people you could kick me twice in the shins every day and I'd still smile because here I was full time, a place to live. I just gotten married and was serving God. So we realized that a lot of these applications were going to the top of the list. Our staff were getting jobs when other people couldn't find jobs who were in a similar stage of life or just getting out of school, or high school or college, and they were thriving in it. A lot of in our field, especially out in group home settings or support services, they can really burn people out. And our staff were surviving and thriving longer than anybody. So that's when we, again, paying attention to like, "Oh, I think God's doing something here." It seems like we're not just running camp and serving people and making disciples, but there's like this leadership training component where people are going out in life and being successful. Now, it's going in this direction that's very specific, caring for people with special needs. But even that's not unheard of. I mean, that's just good old life. You know, you're going to take care of your kids, you're going to take care of siblings, you're going to take care of your neighbors. You may even take care of your parents when they get older. So we really are doing just normal life stuff. It's just that we've got a bunch of young 20-year-olds that are knocking it out of the park years or even decades before other people are doing that. So that was a big one that caused us to say, "Hey, if we could put some academics around this,
Hmm.
man, that would not only take our efforts and what we're doing and call us to a higher level of doing it well, doing it with excellence, but then it would benefit them." And
Yeah.
so that's
Well,
how
I want to talk about TLI and lid in a minute because I think the part of what you're putting your finger on helps me even. 'Cause I've told the Arrowhead story and who is Arrowhead, who is Ben Myers to a lot of different people, but without context, without some trajectory and picture on it, it's hard to really give it the depth that it actually is. But what you're saying and what I've observed over the years is that you stepped into the official leadership development and the program side of the academic side of it because something was already happening that was a byproduct of how you guys were doing ministry. People were walking without even the structured programs that you're working with now. People are walking away having gained skills, successful, and not just individuals being successful, but all of a sudden there's a reputation, there's a name, so that that brand isn't just, hey, we did some stuff in this area. It's here's who we are, here's the level we operate at. I mean, I remember for me, I got out of school, finance degree, went and applied at a credit union, big credit union, Harrisburg, and the later on, I asked my boss, why did I get that interview? Because I know there were people that had
Yeah.
degrees from bigger schools and all of that stuff. Because it was pretty good job for right out of school. And he said, I was interested in this wilderness thing you did and the skills that you listed. And then in the interview, he's like, I asked you about it, and it was clear that you understood people, you knew how to have conversations, you were team oriented, all of those things that came out of just, and to me, kind of like to you, I'm like, isn't everybody think that way?
Yeah.
Well, no, actually not,
Yeah.
especially anymore. So that's I love that. That's awesome to put some context to that and how you got where you're at. But want to zoom out a little bit and talk about your roots, your story. How did you get there in the first place to Arrowhead? What was your life trajectory
Mhm.
that landed you at Arrowhead? And when you got there, what was it that was the foundation you started with?
Yeah. Well, the secret sauce, the thing that was my trajectory is I'm a college dropout. So, which is always fun to say, especially when we're hanging out with a bunch of college students and teaching them college courses at different levels. And really, that was what I needed. And so I was in college. I was working my way through a degree that would be a Bible degree focused on camping ministry. I don't know if I was one of the dullest crayons in the box, but it always seemed like God was going to put one thing in front of me, and I just had to run hard after that. That seemed to be the way He was doing it, and so I was just trying to pay attention, be obedient, and move forward. I like getting things done yesterday, so I was just moving as blinders on, moving as hard and fast as I could. So I was in the middle of getting my Bible degree with a focus on camping ministry. That's when I landed here for a summer and saw that as I served, all the different uh, jobs I had in high school growing up, a few jobs in college, also the fact that I was being formally discipled by our student ministry pastor and was gaining experience in ministry and leadership, and even being challenged to disciple myself or disciple others myself. All of that seemed to be just culminating in the experience that I was having during what was going to be this one summer of a great resume build out. So uh, I dropped out and came here full time. And that what that did was it basically made the the rest of my degree and the experience I was sort of going to get at the tail end or in a small way insufficient or unnecessary. And so that's when I was recruiting to get staff for summer for camp. Met your family and folks that were doing things outside the box, and they waved the flag and said, "Hey, we've got something that'll make this worthwhile. We got something that'll allow you to finish up your degree in a super meaningful way." Um, Now I wasn't completely dropped out because I kept taking classes at a local community college to keep pushing forward, but I had hit a roadblock. Right, traditional college wasn't going to meet my needs and wasn't going to help me move forward. And so that's when connecting with you allow I was able to use camp as my classroom, which I mean was great because I was already working, so it was just going to mesh things together. But it also challenged me to take things to the next level. I remember being in the midst of it and thinking, "Huh, I wonder if I would be doing this if I wasn't challenged through the coursework and making camp my classroom." But it was wonderful. It was a great experience, and I was able to graduate. And then a few years later, this idea of a master's program came around. I was like, oh, if I could do that same thing, and it was really working in tandem because it was, ooh, we're doing something special here at camp uh, that I think if we put the academics around is going to accelerate the experience and the outcomes for our staff and the people that are around us, as well as for myself thinking, ooh, I wonder how this would propel the ministry forward. I wonder how this would challenge me. And so my master's degree is what was the catalyst for that.
So, and from a timeline standpoint, you're in college, you do the summer at Arrowhead, decide, you know what, I need to go all in, drop out, do online, and and so at that point, what was your role at camp at that point? Program? Were you leading? Where was that?
Yeah. I'd like to think I was cooler than I was, but I just so I didn't have the title of director, which I do now, but I was the only person on full time staff.
Okay.
So a lot of decisions I made day to day affected me, and yeah, so being the only one here meant I got to have my hands in just about everything. We did have folks that would come in seasonally to serve alongside of us to make the programs happen, to serve in different capacities. But as far as man, the experience of full-time ministry, I got to go home in the evening and tell my wife all about my day, which was great.
How old were you at that point? Just
Yep, I was
timeline.
21.
Wow. So at
Yeah.
21, you are essentially lone wolfing a camp environment that has the shepherd's ministry and some other things going on. You're learning on the fly. And now, did you have a background in disability ministry coming into that, or were you kind of picking that up as you went?
That was all new to me. It was really a learn as I go. At the same time, again, the whole idea of having the blinders on and just following hard after God, I was up for anything. I'd been saying that and even writing it in papers that I wrote in high school. Right, that a friend of mine, he and I, and even in our public school writing classes where you'd have to talk about your future or plans or write a paper about yourself or something like that, we used to put an asterisk at the end of our papers and then at the bottom put all plans subject to change according to God's will. I mean, it was just this fun thing. And
Awesome.
it was a mindset. It was a heart posture of, man, I'm gonna keep moving forward, and whatever God calls me to do, that's what I'm doing. And
it's interesting because I've watched you over the years, and there's this interesting weaving of intentionality and responsiveness, which there are people that are very responsive and really work well in the like, okay, something's happening, I'm responding. They don't tend to be as intentional and forward thinking. And there are people who are very forward thinking and visionary that don't tend to respond really well. And it's this it's almost a sine curve of dynamics over time where you're like, okay, we're going after stuff, and as you're going, it's not on the fly, but it's a very interesting weaving of intentionality, skill development, solving problems. Even, I'll tell you what, I'll let you put words on it, but the way you navigated COVID as a camp, maybe run through that really quick, because that's a great example of what I've seen over time in different ways.
yeah, that was tough. I mean, for us, if we had kept our programs going, it would have been like opening up a nursing home hotspot. The average age of our campers is 55. So we have some that are as young as 14, others that, like our oldest camper just turned 96. So we're not just a kids camp where it's like, man, I know the kids are going to have a blast. I hope the parents aren't too upset. Are we going to be able to, what happens if people get sick? I mean, we have older folks who have very high care needs, much of which are medically related. So for us to continue to be open and operating would have been ridiculous, pointless, disastrous, and we didn't want to be that Bible camp in the news that was still going. So, but we made every effort to provide that camp experience to our campers, to their families, to give them some sort of respite where they could utilize camp. So we literally opened up camp and activities to 1 or 2 camper families that could be separate across the property in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we created camp in a box where we could get all the normal things that were super exciting about a week of camp that the campers got to experience or take home with them. And we sent those out. We did custom videos that had YouTube links for our campers to find that were just for them. We did as much as we could. Looking back on it, I wish we had done more. I wish we had just pushed the envelope on it. But certainly it was a difficult time where we had to weather that. We also had to weather kind of the financial part of it as well, which was an amazing thing to watch God's blessing and provision through that as we had a little campaign going called Save the Summer. We were trying to recoup what we were going to lose so we wouldn't lose traction heading into the next year.
In our conversations over the years, gaining an appreciation for the fact that you not only provide camp for campers, but you provide respite and tools and care for families that are caring for individuals that just have a lot of needs. Different dynamic in COVID, when you add to the challenge isolation and the inability to get out and breathe in fresh air and all of that stuff, the level that you guys went to solve that as best as could be solved in that environment, instead of saying, well, I guess we can't do much because XYZ, was an encouragement to me anyways. It was impressive.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
and that's just one of the, I think you undersell what you guys did because again, I think you think a lot about what you do as normal because it's normal to you. But your ministry, the dynamic, the team, what you do on a day-to-day basis is just a whole different level. So thinking about that though, making the transition, we were talking before about the leadership dynamic, individuals coming out of staff and being successful, getting hired, et cetera, finding that as a dynamic that you just said, hey, what if we doubled down on that and actually put some structure around it? And so we've been connected for a long time through your education and other things. But a few years ago, you decided to start the leadership initiative, right? TLI's
Oh,
the
yeah,
launch
TLI, the
initiative.
launch initiative.
The launch
Yep.
initiative.
Yeah.
So many acronyms.
So yeah, I bet you've only got a few acronyms running through your head.
So you started the launch initiative. Talk a little bit about what the thought process was, and then just even the process of going from concept to reality, and how that's worked out for you.
Yeah. For us, it was a pretty easy transition. Again, because there was some substructure to, I would say, the community we have here, the discipleship and leadership training focus, and if things weren't already happening, they were kind of just bubbling and boiling under the surface. Right after I got done with my master's, I turned around and started adjunct teaching for a couple schools, which was great. I mean, we were doing kind of an intensive class, one at a time, over 3 weekends or over the summer, and so it was light enough that I could add that into what I was already doing, and that's how I cut my teeth and really formulated my own kind of background in, okay, I can educate people, and I can run all the details and keep it all organized and move forward, and then. Yeah, the idea of coming up with a gap year program that would utilize what we do and who we are as the thrust behind the ministry and the academics being melded together. That came about, and it seemed like a no-brainer. It also made sense in terms of, okay, that means the college staff that we normally have to chase after for the summer are now going to be on site. So they'll probably choose to be here more readily. We'll also be able to run more weeks of camp because they're going to be on site, because we can use those as kind of like a break week or two here and there. So it started just checking off these boxes. And part of that's my personality. One of the things we love to do here as a full-time staff is talk about how God has wired us, how he's created us, the things that we're great at, also the things that we're not great at, because, well, there's some things that we have to do or that we shouldn't do because they frustrate us, and it's not how God's wired us. And so as a team, we're always talking about the things that we're great at and that the way God has wired us. One of those is, for me, is coming up with new ideas, right? Is being able to dream stuff up. It also happens that one of the other things that pushes to the surface in how God has created me is being excited about telling people about what we're doing next. So I'm actually my team's worst enemy, because I will come up with an idea and then want to get moving on it and tell everybody about it. So to me, as soon as it hit the table, it was, okay, this can be added in, that can be added in. I can see how it looks. When we talk about vision and what we envision happening in the future within our mission here at the camp, I mean, I could see it clear as day. Everything from sitting in class to the textbooks, and even what I was assuming and praying would be the impact for the students, right? And so that program is 30 college credits that we offer on site. I do a lot of the teaching. I bring some people in to supplement or to add in, just because they're fantastic at a specific subject or course material, or something specific that's tailored to a student. And then they both serve here at camp while engaged in the academics. And then, I mean, this becomes their home, becomes a place where they live and hang out and and relax. And so it's all encompassing, and that's really one of the reasons why I love camp. I say it all the time that camp is all of life all the time. So it's primed for discipling through your 24/7 all day, every day. You don't have to wait till you see that person tomorrow or next week. You're going to see them in 5 minutes, and we can keep moving forward with team dynamics and discipleship and mentoring and conflict and spiritual formation and growth. I mean, it all gets to happen all the time.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things too that's a little unique about your program in its practice. I mean, design is not hugely different than some other programs, but as it relates to how it plays out, your gap year students are part of the team. They're not just there to have an experience. Like, they're involved in the ministry, intimately involved in the ministry. They're involved with campers, and that's a key part of not just experience, but also development training. They're involved with other staff members. So team dynamics isn't an idea. It's not something that they just kind of do in the space together as students. Oh, we're going to do some team stuff over here. They're intimately involved with everything that's going on at a level that's different, I think, than a lot of gap years that are more download or experience oriented in how they play out.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. I mean, so we'll mentor, we'll disciple, we'll train up leaders, and we'll do that through anything that's going on in life, whether it's they're trying to communicate with family members where there's some conflict there, they're trying to figure out how to change the oil in their car, or they're like, I know God wants me to go do something, but what is it? How do I know if I'm called to something? What's my purpose? Right. So I mean, it could run the gamut. The coolest thing is that we get to customize that. So for instance, one of our students was thinking that creative writing and even being a nonfiction writer would be his future, was a path he wanted to explore. So we got to couple that with one of our courses and a special guest speaker who's actually a published Christian fiction writer. So it was like this culmination of somebody coming in who could speak as an expert and someone accomplished. It worked for our coursework. And then this one student got several hours with our guest speaker where he was writing and actually having him proof it and give feedback, and eventually realized, he's like, oh, I think I want this to be more of a hobby. I don't think I want this as a job. Or one of our other students that like changed her course halfway through because she realized through the experience she was having here, oh, this isn't going to work. And she actually changed gears and went in the direction of her hobby, which ended up being a job where she was producing revenue.
That's awesome. So that said, that's a couple stories of student experiences. Hit me with some highlights of student experiences, journeys, etc., beyond those two.
Yeah. Anytime a student can test drive, prototype, or even use camp as a place where they can figure out how to add value and whether that's how God has designed them, is fantastic. I would say probably one of the more recent ones is a young lady who was serving with us this summer and then changed her whole course because she realized that the experience she was having here with the academics would give her a path forward. Right. And so she went from, hey, I'm heading this direction at this school, and I'm actually going to switch gears, head to Arrowhead, where I can continue to do something that I love and I'm passionate about. They're gonna make that part of my resume building, where when I show up for my first interview, I'm gonna have the experience, I'm gonna have the knowledge, and I'm gonna have lived in a community where my character was challenged, where my character was built, and my spiritual formation and growth was a focus. So I think that's one of the most recent ones that's huge because it's life changing.
And that's a good dovetail because that student in particular is in the Leadership and Disabilities, the LID program, right? Is that correct?
Yep, correct. Yeah.
Which is distinct from the Launch Initiative. Launch Initiative is gap year, so right out of high school or in that zone, moving towards potentially college, career, next steps, et cetera. So it's really more entry level skill development. The Leadership and Disabilities program is targeted a little bit later in the journey if you're thinking about academic journey and course alignment and all of that fun stuff. But talk about that program in particular, and because it's a newer one, what its aim is and what you see the trajectory of the program being.
Mhm. Yeah. So recently, we kept running into students or young adults who, man, this gap year program isn't going to be a great fit, but they were a great mission fit at camp,
Mm.
and so basically we started expanding our footprint in the academic process so that we could meet their needs. They could have extreme value here at camp, and again, it propels them forward. So our gap year program, the Launch Initiative, it's kind of like the 70-30, where it's mostly coursework and academics with the ministry and camp in there. And then we created a second program, the Leadership and Disabilities program, that kind of flips that on its head. And it's like, okay, camp is going to be the majority of what you're doing. The ministry is going to be the majority of what you're doing. And then we're going to put the academics in there. Right. And so we have a little bit more of a longer time frame to accomplish that. But they're also older as a student, they're not coming in fresh as a freshman. So they're usually able to hit the ground running. So our Leadership and Disabilities program is meant to give them super in-depth ministry experience, adding in the academics, and then again customizing for their trajectory.
Yep.
And then the same is true of one of our full-time staff is engaged in their grad program while serving here full-time. So it's kind of like step 1, step 2, step 3. We're just running the gamut. And again, it's wonderful because we're meeting them where they're at. They have a customized trajectory that we can engage with while they can do meaningful, real life, day-to-day ministry that's not going to burn them out, but allow them to do all of that, and thrive. So I would say for the future, we're excited for. I mean, I'd really like to see the master's level continue to increase because I think it's a big need, and we are able to provide those young adults or students with the actual real life ministry experience that spans the whole ministry, right? And so it's not just pigeonholing into one area or giving them kind of experience. I mean, we want them to be in it. We want them to be responsible and acting and operating as owners, which is going to give them best experience.
Yeah. So real quick, in your words, because I have my words for it, but you do this probably better than just about anybody in our network. We talk a lot about integrated learning or integrated courses as opposed to like a bolt-on online course. What does that look like for any of those 3 layers of students at Arrowhead when they're involved in whether it's a master's program or the internship level or the gap year level? What does integration look like with coursework?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. Of course, I keep saying that, so I may have to pick a favorite. But so we'll take a course, and the structure of the course work, culminating with an application project, and then we'll add on these layers, right? So the first layer is what is the student passionate about? What do they want to explore? Do they think there's a small seed of something that God is calling them to in the future, or something they could be great at? Because you don't have to be great at something now. It might be something that God's instilling in you that's going to become a passion for life, a passion for ministry or vocation. So we're looking at what the student is bringing to that application project, whether they're ready to fire on all cylinders, or it could be this small glimpse of something that God's doing. Then we'll add in a layer of what can we offer, What do we have here that fits? Whether it's a certain department here at camp that they can serve in or have experience with, or an area of the ministry that is just a fit for that application project. Then we'll layer in, man, like we need more information. We need to build more knowledge, or we need to try to create the skill set through some part of our ministry that may be small or not exist yet. So we'll layer in, how can we supplement? And then we'll layer in, what can we bring in from the outside, right? And sometimes that means we'll have somebody come to camp and join our ministry that will be able to impact that project for the student, or we'll send them, right? I mean, because we like to think we're getting pretty good at a lot of things, but we're not great at everything. So we love it when people can come alongside of us, or we can point our students to the right place to get that expert experience, skill, knowledge.
Yeah.
So we like to try to integrate on all levels. Just so happens it tends to benefit camp and add value to our ministry, whether it's something that's existing or it's something that we want to try to create, which, as we know, is something I like to do.
See it, create it,
Yep.
talk about it, then build it, right?
Yep.
So that's awesome. And it's interesting because I try to explain to people who are new to the process or investigating the process that in the framework that we use, when you have objectives and outcomes in that you're trying to deliver, these learning outcomes, academic outcomes, that you're ultimately going to be assessed on, which in your environment and all of the environments of our partners are actual deliverables in real ministry context with real people in real places and all of that. The rules for how you inform and load that process go three-dimensional instead of kind of flat two-dimensional. It's not curriculum, it's a framework that gives you all kinds of creativity, but it gives you all kinds of ways to bring value to that process. And you have not just permission, but you can lean into that, and you can do it at the granular student level, cohort level, et cetera. And there's just like the power of that opportunity in shaping individual trajectories and really stewarding them is pretty significant. So it's interesting to hear even how you play that out with each individual student and cohorts and at the different program levels in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, because I could go round and round and just dig into all the corners because I know what most of the corners are, but in the interest of time, because I'm sure you have some things to do, thinking forward with Arrowhead and where you're headed, with the programs that we work together on, but more broadly missionally, what are the things that you see ahead that you're stepping towards, stepping into, casting vision for? Where's Arrowhead headed?
Yeah. It's always needs based, right? I mean, discipleship is needs based, right? First and foremost, we need a savior. And then we need to learn and know and experience what it means to be a follower of Jesus and to become more like him. We also need to know how to do things like put our shoes on the right foot in the morning, and then how to have relationships with people and gain emotional intelligence, and how to fix our car and how to go to work and how to plan for the future and retirement. So it's all needs based, right? And so for us, we look at that twofold when we see the future. One is, man, what do we as a ministry need? Because we are definitely going to have needs to be able to move forward. But then we're also, it's kind of twofold. We have young adults and folks that are serving with us, and they have a certain set of needs. But then there are others who aren't serving with us yet. They're the folks that we're out looking for, the folks that God is bringing here, and they have needs as well. And so what are those needs and how can we meet them? How do those all culminate, right? So for us as a ministry, we need staff. Part of that is the overwhelming demand of our program. Like you said before, we are providing that unforgettable experience of camp to our campers. For some, it's multiple times a year. For many of them, it's for decades of their life. And then on top of that, we're also providing respite for their family members. Some people think we're this cool camp that does this amazing thing where we're taking care of folks who are disabled. I mean, my goodness, the parents, the care providers, they're knocking it out of the park the other 48, 50, 51 weeks of the year. And they're doing that sometimes without help, without support, and they're doing it without fail. So to us, they're the heroes. Those are the ones that are showing up. So, but we get to provide that respite, that place where they can trust that their son or daughter, the folks that they're taking care of, are going to be well cared for, just like they are doing. And so, the ministry is huge. The need is huge. The demand is out the window. So we constantly have a waiting list for campers trying to get in. And all we need is staff. We've got everything else covered. We're ready to go. We just need more staff, more young adults to serve with us during the summer, or to serve with us year round. Now that we're running our program 36 weeks a year, which is part of the way that we're meeting that demand, we just need more. We need even more staff to serve with us on a year round basis. So that's what we're looking for. And then we're trying to figure out, what do they need? Because if they're going to come here, they're going to be living in community where they're living, working, serving, learning together. What makes it worthwhile, right? What life change is going to happen that's going to be significant? Because if we're this great place where everybody should come and serve, but we're not doing anything to help them move forward, it's just this place they were at that one time. So we're looking to add value to their experience, to provide community that really does formulate change and heart transformation, and then giving them the skills and the resume to head out and to knock it out of the park.
That's awesome. In that process, that really has been the case, and probably is the hardest part of the message to throw on a website or in a brochure or whatever, because the stories are what actually, because everybody says, here's things we do. Oh yeah, if you graduate here or you finish this or whatever, you'll be capable of, you'll get, etc. And so separating from that noise is probably not the right word. But differentiating and the distinction between what you're doing and producing and other things that are out there is a challenge. But I think the opportunity to even just highlight, showcase, hear your voice, and affirm, like, this is what I've seen over the probably 18 or 20 years that we've known each other. Over the course of time. So, which has gone from that early on, like, running this thing by myself, to a pretty substantial operational cycle group of people that have, fired through and all of that. The history's there. So first, I'm going to ask you for some advice, like what advice you would give somebody, a young person that wants to say, I want Ben's job someday, or I want to do what Ben's doing, maybe in a different platform. That's going to be the first question. But before we wrap, I'm going to ask you to share too, how would somebody connect? How would a young person connect with Arrowhead if they said, you know what, that's where I want to go grow? And then secondarily, how would somebody who says, man, I'm beyond that point in life, but I want to invest in this, how would they do that? So we'll get there in a minute. But first, what advice would you give a young person that says, I want to be that guy when I grow up?
Yeah. The first thing is get real life experience. Like, get into a place where you can get your hands dirty and work in it day after day, alongside people who will train, disciple, mentor, correct, and celebrate with you as you go through that. Right. Another one is start thinking like a leader. Right. I mean, if God's calling you to lead, if God's calling you to manage, if God's calling you to be a part of a specific ministry, start acting like you're in it now. Do the things that those leaders do, that those managers do, that those folks in that ministry do. Start doing it now. You can do it in small ways each day. You can do it in different circles that you're serving, or even just the information that you're ingesting or content that you're bringing in. So start doing it now. We say that all the time with our students. It's like, you don't have to wait till the end of the program to start doing ministry. Or if you're going to create a plan, the plan isn't to go do this someday. Like, your plan that we're creating right now in class, that's going to start tomorrow. Why? Because now's the time, right? We got to get away from planning to go do stuff for God and wake up tomorrow and do it. Another one would be get organized and get real good at the details. Life is full of administrative, miscellaneous stuff you got to do. So the more organized you can get, having documents and spreadsheets and charts and to-do lists being your friends, that will serve you well in life. Another one, this actually comes from a guy that I used to serve under, and he would say, small, consistent steps in the same direction. After he served for a number of decades, probably 40 plus years in ministry, I said, what's one of the keys? And he goes, small, consistent steps in the same direction. And that really does add up. It keeps you motivated, keeps things moving forward, allows you to be trustworthy, and it doesn't burn you out. So I would think, I would say one of the last things would be to go ahead and dream big and pray big, and just, we like to call it bet the farm faith that God's going to do great things.
Love it. Great. I'd love to. Yeah. Anyway, I'll skip that thought.
I know.
I have so many thoughts. We could just go on forever. Yeah, it's great. Cool. And I appreciate that. And I think that a lot of young people are moving into next step decisions and saying they have this idea. I do want to nail it for God. I do want to follow through on my purpose and path. I want to figure out what that is. I want to go for it, but it feels so big and distant. And the messages that are coming at them are, well, take this traditional pathway, do it this way, do it that way. But a lot of that involves punting for a while to tool up, and then, get a couple experiences here and there. And they have this intuition that is like, well, number one, do I know what it's going to look like and what I'm preparing for? Number two, will I change my mind later? Number three, can I stay the course? All of that. And so all of those pieces, regardless of what path they pick and choose, or what God puts them into, I think are dynamic and helpful for, like, get it going now, get moving, dream, like tie the now and the next together meaningfully in a mission and go for it. So super helpful. So if I were a young person getting ready to graduate high school, or maybe I've got a couple of years of college in me, or maybe I just graduated college and I'm thinking, man, I know I want to do something next, and this sounds like an amazing place to do it. How would they step into that conversation?
Yeah. Easiest thing to do is go to our website at arrowheadbiblecamp.org. That's where you'll find contact information. So if you're old like me, you'll call me on the phone and I'll answer and we'll have a conversation. Although a text or an email or filling out a staff application from our website, that is the easiest way to get connected. Yeah.
And if somebody's like, man, I don't really know, but I'd love to immerse and see, is summer the best place to start that off?
It can be. Yeah, it can be. The great thing about our team that's working here is, I'm super biased. I love camp. I've been here so long that I eat, sleep, and breathe it. I can't help it. So I'm always going to think that this is the best place for you to be. This is exactly where God wants you to be. But I've got a team around me that when I say, hey, we really are more concerned with what God's doing in a person's life, not are they coming here to serve. So I've got some folks around me here at camp that when we enter into that conversation, I'll have them with me or I'll send them ahead. And it really does become a conversation of, man, what is God doing in and through you? What are the next steps? Is there a place that's better than Arrowhead for you? or can we even just help you figure out a next step?
Yeah.
And then being able to talk about whether serving here at camp is a good mission fit.
Awesome. And if I were an old guy like me and I said, well, I already am in factory, God's doing his thing, but man, I'd love to help out. How would I do that?
We have multiple ways to have people invest in camp. That's the word we love. The Red Cross is the only organization that has donors, and they don't want their stuff back. So we like to use the word investments and investors, because for myself and the other staff here, we are investing ourselves in the ministry. And there are a lot of people that invest across the span of a year, whether they're investing a weekend or a week, whether they invest the fact that they're good at climbing up trees and dropping the tree without it landing on things, or they can do carpentry, or they can cook, or they can teach a subject or a class. So people are investing all the time, and some will invest by sending money, right? Sending money to support camper scholarships, or making our next big purchase for accessibility equipment happen, or jumping in on a special thing that we do for our staff. And that can be done through our website as well. So we love when people invest in a number of ways.
So speaking of specialty gear for people with disabilities, a couple of years ago, you showed me a design for a swing that was wheelchair accessible or something to that effect. Did you guys end up building that?
We built two of them, actually.
Awesome.
A bunch of VBS programs with churches that we know. The kids all brought in their VBS offering for the week, and we're kind of the typical guys against girls, and we were flooded with enough investments that we could have two of these things built. Yeah, it's pretty classic for us. I think this is probably a condition of my family, an issue that my family had growing up. And that is that when we would build things, and we'd build them probably 3 to 4 times bigger than they need to be. So we have these monstrous Adirondack style gliders, where typically you'd have 2 benches that face each other and it glides. But ours has a bench on one side that'll fit like 5 or 6 people, and then a ramp on the other side so 2 wheelchairs can come up. And they're these crazy monstrosities that at the posts and the beams were all cut from trees, and the brackets were all custom made. It looks like it belongs at camp. It fits really well, but it super fits our purpose, where we want to get people into an activity, even if it's just being able to sit and have a conversation and relax, where we have campers, staff, volunteers alongside campers in wheelchairs as well.
And you came up with that design yourself, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
There are some out there.
Okay.
I remember my grandparents had one of these swings when I was growing up, but we wanted something beefy and camp-esque. And so I worked with some local guys and kind of pulled a bunch of ideas together and said, don't do any of this, but can you make it? And they're tremendous.
That is a classic Ben Myers Arrowhead on mission, on purpose. Yeah. Crazy story, which is awesome.
Nice.
So I think it's a great place to wrap up. I really appreciate the time. Thanks for not just this time, but all the years. I've learned a ton from you. I've been challenged a ton. And every time we have a conversation, I'm like, I got to get better. So I really appreciate it
as well. I always feel like when we talk, it's just immediate sharpening, as well as the fact that we've been in this together long enough that when I look around camp, it's as much the impact that I've had over the years here, that you've had over the years here, because a lot of the components of what we're doing, we've built that together. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for your time, Ben.
Yep. See ya.
Bye.